to the San Francisco Planning Commission regular hearing for Thursday, March 8th, 2018. I would remind the members of the public that the Commission does not tolerate any disruption or outbursts of any kind. Please silence your mobile devices that may sound off during these proceedings. And when speaking before the Commission, if you care to, do state your name for the record. I'd like to take roll at this time. Commission President Hillis.
Here.
Commission Vice President Melgar.
Here.
Commissioner Fong.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Koppel.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
And Commissioner Richards.
Here.
Commissioners, first on your agenda is consideration of items proposed for continuance. Item 1, case number 2016-010185, CUA at 160 Caselli Avenue, conditional use authorization, is proposed for continuance to March 29, 2018. Item 2, case number 2017-014849, CUA at 220 Post Street, conditional use authorization, is proposed for continuance to April 19th, 2018. Further, Commissioners, under your consent calendar, Item 3, case number 2017-005992, CUA at 48 Saturn Street, conditional use authorization. We've received a request from the project sponsor to continue this matter an additional 2 weeks to March 22nd, 2018. Excuse me. Finally, under your regular calendar, Item 19, case number 2017-008121, CUA at 1805 Divisadero Street, conditional use authorization. We've received a request from the project sponsor to continue this matter to April 26th, 2018. I have no other requests for continuance, and I have no speaker cards.
Any public comment on the items being proposed for continuance?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Kevlin here with Ruben, Junius, and Rose. Speaking on the continuance for 48 Saturn. We are trying to get a lot done on this very small site. We've been working with staff over the last 3 months to follow the Commission's direction at the last hearing. We're asking for another 2-week continuance now so we can go back to the neighborhood and give us some time to have some conversations there. So we appreciate the 2 weeks, and we'll be back then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioners? Commissioner Moore.
I'd like to ask that we hear Saturn and then give further instructions, because we had originally asked for input on how long they need for that continuance. And if there's something in the packet, so I suspect we should at least comment on that, so that we don't spend another 2 weeks with no further direction given.
Commissioner Richards.
I'm following what Commissioner Moore said. I am a little concerned because I know that the neighbors in the neighborhood, it's close to where I live, actually were calling me about it, and they got wind that there was a continuance, so they're not coming today. So I think, in all fairness, to be able to give them a chance to speak and weigh in on the matter, I'd probably support a continuance.
I would also. I mean, I think it was a little confusing, too, how it was on our calendar as a consent, because it was disapproval of the prior project, yet there was a new project before us that had approval by the staff. So I'd say, well, let's get some community input into this and hear it again in 2 weeks. Commissioner Moore.
I got a letter 2 nights ago of a person living on Saturn saying exactly the opposite, that they were surprised after we sent it back in December that they had not been asked. So that is basically the message.
They haven't been asked what?
That they had not been asked for any further input.
Yeah, so I think that can happen in the 2 weeks. That's what we're hoping happens in the next 2 weeks. There's community input. I agree.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve as read.
Second.
So I move to continue.
Thank you. On that motion, then, to continue matters as proposed, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0. Commissioners, that will place us under your consent calendar. All matters listed here under constitute a consent calendar are considered to be routine by the Planning Commission and may be acted upon by a single roll call vote of the Commission. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the Commission, the public, or staff so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item at this or a future hearing. Item 3 was continued. Item 4, case number 2016-014839 CUA at 4093 24th Street, conditional use authorization. Item 5, case number 2017-005841 CUA at 2099 Market Street, conditional use authorization. Item 6, case number 2016-007531 CUA at 533 Jackson Street, conditional use authorization. And item 7 for case number 2017-015199 CUA at 531 Bayshore Boulevard, conditional use authorization. I do understand that there may be someone here in opposition to item 4 on 24th Street. Is that true? Okay, if you'd like to speak to this matter, we will pull it off of consent and hear it under the regular calendar.
So would you like that off consent? Would you? Wait, will you come speak into the mic pretty quickly? So we either have to pull it off consent to hear
right,
your
we have to-
concerns
we
or
ha-
not?
In order to accept public testimony, Commissioner Hillis, we have to pull it off of consent and hear it.
Okay, well, we're going to have public testimony to determine
Matter
whether.
of certain issues within the plan as it is.
All right, we'll pull it off consent.
Okay.
And hear it at the beginning of the regular calendar or at the end?
Let's do it after item 15.
Very good. Commissioners, then that leaves items 5, 6, and 7 for your consideration under consent.
All right, is there any member of the public who would like to pull item 5, 6, or 7 off our consent calendar? Seeing none, Commissioner Koppel?
Move to approve items 5, 6, and 7.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion then to to approve with conditions items 5, 6, and 7 under your consent calendar. Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0 and places us under Commission Matters. Item 8, consideration of adoption draft minutes for February 22nd, 2018.
Any public comment on the draft minutes? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Commissioner Fong?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to adopt the minutes for February 22nd, 2018, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Richards? Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0 and places us on item 9, Commission comments and questions.
Commissioners, Dennis, do you have?
Interestingly enough, in this morning's Chronicle on the business section, page 1, the headline caught me, Connecting Citizens with City Hall, and I thought, wow, let me read this article. It sounds kind of neat. And it was about this company called Excella. I believe it's the Excella that we actually contracted with for online building permitting and planning. And actually, there's 2,000 municipalities now using Excella, and they're all doing kind of an off-the-shelf version. So I can't wait on April 12th to get an update on how the Excella project's going here with us.
All right, Jonas, we can move to the next item.
Very good. Department matters, item 10, Director's announcements.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. No new announcements this week. Thanks.
Item 11, review of past events of the Board of Supervisors, Board of Appeals, and the Historic Preservation Commission.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Aaron Starr, Manager of Legislative Affairs for the Planning Department. First on the land use agenda this week was the landmark designation for the Diamond Heights Safety Wall. The wall is a public sculpture located on the south side of Diamond Heights Boulevard at Clipper Street. It is significant for its association with the Diamond Heights redevelopment project, a planning effort led by the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency from 1961 to 1978. The sculpture was nominated by the landmarks designation through a community-sponsored landmarks application submitted by Bob Pullum to the department on May 1st of last year. On November 1st of last year, the Historic Preservation Commission initiated landmark designation, and on December of last year, voted to unanimously recommend approval of the designation. At the land use hearing, Bob Pullum and members of the Diamond Heights Community Association testified in support of the designation. One member of the public, who indicated he was a member of the Libertarian Party, testified against the designation. The supervisors had questions about ownership and maintenance responsibilities of the sculpture since it has not been maintained over the decades. Staff informed the committee members that the sculpture is located on a city-owned easement, but that correspondence with the real estate department to confirm this was left unanswered. The DPW's representative who was in attendance stated that the safety wall is not currently on their maintenance plan and that prior to planning outreach, DPW was unaware of the safety wall. The committee voted to move the item forward to the full board without recommendation, citing the lack of clarity around who is responsible for maintenance, and requested that the information be provided to them before the hearing next Tuesday. Since then, Planning Department staff has received acknowledgement from the Real Estate Department that the city owns the property and that DPW is the party responsible for its maintenance. Last on the land use agenda was the landmark designation for 2117 Market Street, also known as the New Era Hall. This building is significant as a work of a master architect, August Norden, and for its association with the rebuilding of San Francisco after 1906, the establishment of the Upper Market Street as a commercial corridor, and the Visalia Stock Saddle Company, a pioneering custom saddle business. The property was initially identified in the planning process of Market Octavia Plan, and the HBC unanimously voted to recommend the landmark designation on April 19th of last year. A representative from the Academy of Ballet, a longtime tenant of the building, provided testimony in support of the landmark designation. He highlighted the fact that the Academy has been operating out of this building for 65 years and that he hopes the property is preserved because there are few spaces in the city that can accommodate dance studios like theirs. After public comment, committee members had a few questions about the ownership and if the owner supported the landmark designation. Staff affirmed that they did support the designation and then forwarded the item to the full board with a positive recommendation. And then at the full board this week, the zoning map and planning code amendment for the Geary Masonic Special Use District passed its second read. The Jackson Square SUD amendments for restaurant and bar uses also passed its second read, and the Campaign and Government Conduct Code for the Form 700 also passed its second read. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonas, are there any other reports? Oh,
Yes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tim Fry, Department staff, here to share with you a couple items from yesterday's Historic Preservation Commission hearing. If I could get the overhead, please. The Commission voted unanimously in support of its recommendation to locally designate the Phillips Van Orden building located at 246 First Street to Article 10 of the Planning Code. This is the largest Art Deco industrial loft building in San Francisco and is the work of master architects Myers and Klinkert. The building was added to the HPC's Landmark Designation Work Program back in 2012 as part of the Transit Center Area Plan rezoning effort, and this was the second hearing the Commission held, so this recommendation will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors and scheduled at a future date, and the owners are in support of the designation. One other item to mention to you is that the Planning Department staff was in attendance at San Francisco History Days this year. We often have a table along with the Historic Preservation Fund Committee, the Mayor's Office of Employment and Workforce Development, and the California Historical Society in the same room towards the front. We always have a great response to our table and the items that we share related to the city's historic preservation program. This year we focused on the Mills Act program, the Legacy Business program, and some of the preservation policies and designations outlined in the Central Soma Area Plan, which you will be acting on soon. Just wanted to let you know that we are always very happy to participate in History Days, and we'll keep you posted of any other outreach events that occur related to History Days in the future. Thank you.
thank you.
Seeing no other reports.
Wait, we just have a question from Commissioner Richards.
One question. Interestingly enough, both Mr. Starr and Mr. Fry said something about what a landmark is, either designated via a work program or a community-initiated one. The property owner gets asked whether they support it. What happens when they don't?
There's nothing in our local ordinances that prohibit the Board of Supervisors for taking action and landmarking a building without owner consent. However, it's always our goal to provide some sort of collaboration on landmark designations.
Great, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we can move on to general public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the commission on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission, except agenda items. With respect to agenda items, your opportunity to address the commission will be afforded when the item is reached in the meeting. Each member of the public may address the commission for up to 3 minutes. I have one speaker card for Georgia Shudish.
Georgia, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I sent you a rather bulky email with some pictures from the past, from 2015, everyone except Commissioner Johnson, because she doesn't have email yet, but I'm sure she will soon, and when she does, I will send it to her. So what I sent you, if you had a chance to look at it, was the photos from 2015 when Commissioner Richards was kind enough to set up a meeting with the zoning administrator and Mr. Starr and Mr. Duffy to look at samples of what were called alterations, but what may have been demolitions in Noe Valley. And we discovered, or it was discovered by someone, that 40% probably were. I think we looked at 5. So what I'm doing today is showing you more recent samples, if I may. So I'll take the overhead, please. Okay, so I think I showed you that one already. It's this house there, and you can see it's part of a row. Okay, so here we go. There it is during the work, and ironically, there's a demolition sign on it from the contractor. They do demolition work. Here is another one. This is sort of similar. You can get the idea, though. Here it is pretty much now. And they now have that screen over it, so I don't know what they're doing. That's all the same house. Here's another one. Here's the house as it was. It's kind of attractive if you like that style of house. Here it is during the work. Here's more during the work. The outside wall sort of slowly disappears. There's a little bit of it left. And here it is pretty much today. It's kind of stalled. I don't know, maybe they're having trouble with all the materials and worker shortages. But anyway, here's another one. It's this little gray house here. Here it is during the work. You can see the original house. It's kind of Western California. Here it is when they raised it up. There you see they raised it up. Here it is during the work. They're adding the top floor there. You can see that. And it's filled in on the side quite a bit. Here's another picture of it. Here's the back. I didn't get that. This was on socket side or one of those things. That's the rear of it. Here it is today. And they're finishing it up. And here's the latest one. Here it is. Very nice windows. If you wanted to replace the windows, you'd have a hard time. Here it is underway. Here's a close-up. I can't do this thing. I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. And here's another close-up of the foundation work there. So what's my point? What do they all have in common? They're all listed as alterations. They are all south of 24th Street between Noe and Dolores. They did not have DRs. They did not go to the Board of Appeals. And they all have dramatic facade changes, if not obliterations of facades. And they all have vertical expansions. Thank you very much.
Ms. Shudish, just a question. Were they were all alterations under DBI?
They were all listed as alterations.
Did we
You did 311s, and they were alterations.
Were they tantamount to demolition from planning standpoint? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Thank you. We can talk about that next week. Thank you.
Commissioner Richards.
So what I'd like to do, honestly, I'm getting tired of seeing these every week. I've been on the commission 4 years, and this is like the 200th time we've been seeing these. Could we please, when we have the joint hearing with DBI, take some of these and walk through exactly what happened and go, this would have been a demolition, but it's not a demolition, so it would clear the air. There could be, some of these might not be demolitions, because there was one I reported to the zoning administrator that was a bunch of the 2x4s left, but none of the walls, those were walls, they weren't removed, but everything else was gone. So I really want to, I think for the public and for ourselves, we owe it to ourselves to really understand this a little bit better. And seeing these every week not only makes me mad, but also makes me curious to how these things happen. So when we
Right,
do,
and whether they were tantamount to demo under
Yeah.
our rules, too.
Yeah.
So we will do that. Okay, Jonas. Oh, sorry. Additional public comments. My apologies.
Hi, Stephen Buss with Mission Yimby. I sent all of you an email, I think it was yesterday. Unfortunately, not to Commissioner Johnson because your email's not up on the website. It showed, well, could I have the projector, please? I've, come up for the past, this is my third week now, to raise concern around the precipitous drop in the incoming application pipeline. In the third quarter of 2017, there were 0 new permits filed for new residential buildings. There were 12 filed for alterations, resulting in a net of 12 units. But that was it. The third quarter of 2017, we saw 12 units, and they all came from alterations. There were no new buildings, and we need to study why this is happening. And I'm asking you again, please direct staff to study it. So the important thing on this graph is that yellow bar. You can see it's completely gone in 2017. Those are the incoming new building applications. Other things, I meant to start with this, but Commissioner Fong, I'd like to apologize for last week when we all gave our comment and you left. And I understand it's got to be frustrating to have people come in and yell at you every week and then leave and not listen to the rest of the hearing. I did listen to it or watch it on SF Gov TV afterwards, but I had been here for 4 hours and I had to get back to work. But I apologize that we couldn't stay through the end of it. And I am happy that the commission advised that there be follow-up to the Central Soma plan that prioritizes more housing. I think that's the right choice. So thank you for doing that.
Could I ask you, if I may?
Sure.
Mr. President, could I ask you to send me an email about your source for that data on the building permit applications? Because I think it's not consistent with ours. So if you could just send me that'd be great.
Sure. You're on the website, right?
I believe so. I'm the director. So I think you can find me. I think you can find me pretty easily.
John.ram@sfgov.org.
All right. I thought I grabbed every email, but I may have missed yours. But I'll be sure and send it to you.
And if you can share with us, Director Ram, after you've had a chance to look at that data and kind of confirm what the numbers are and some understanding of why they are, that would be great too.
And I think the source data, the actual source data of the permit numbers, anything you have that can actually have us drill down rather than just numbers.
Right, yes. I did include my work on the email that I sent to all of you. I'm sure none of you are software engineers, but yes, I did include that. And if you look at the pipeline report, if you look at the third quarter and filter by, or sort by best date, you can see that everything that happened in Q3 2017 that's PL filed are very small alterations. They're not new buildings.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'm way over.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. Additional public comment? General public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Alex Landsberg. I'm here as a resident of Bayview Hunters Point, and I wanted to bring something to your attention. It'll probably be coming your way over the course of the next few months. But last week, about a week ago, I think, the SFPUC filed a preliminary project application for a proposed community center at the corner of 3rd and Evans. If you turn that on, I've got a...
Can we get the overhead, SF Gov? You can zoom in too, not just on your phone, but on the overhead.
Anyway, they proposed this 45,000 square foot community center on a 4.35 acre public site at a transit node. This is To call it a wasted opportunity, I think, is an understatement. In fact, I think it's blowing about the chance of, it's blowing, I think, an opportunity of a lifetime, and frankly, an opportunity of up to 1,000 lifetimes. The fact of the matter is that with this property, what the city needs to do, and I hope the planning department can persuade the Public Utilities Commission to do this, is to look at this as a multi-use site. Yeah, we need a community center over there to replace the southeast facility, but at the same time, we need hundreds of units of affordable housing. We need a grocery store. We need other public uses or other community uses at that very, very important corner. And unfortunately, the Public Utilities Commission is behaving like the infrastructure agency that it always has been, which is very top-down engineering focus of this is what we want to do, this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to clap. And we're going to ask you to clap for it. Clap harder if you don't think that this is a good idea. So as this plan and proposal develops over the next few months, next few years, who knows how long it'll take them to do this. They've never done anything on time in the first place. But as this thing unfolds, I certainly hope that the staff and the commission can really take it upon themselves to knock some sense into this infrastructure agency and show them what planning actually means. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional general public comment? Seeing none, we can move to the regular calendar.
Very good, Commissioners. That'll place us under your regular calendar for item 12, case number 2018-000681 PCA, hours of operation for limited nonconforming uses. This is a planning code amendment.
Good afternoon, President Hillis and members of the Commission. Jonathan DeSalvo, Planning Department staff. The item before you is the initiation of a planning code amendment that would amend Section 186 of the Planning Code to allow limited nonconforming uses in RH, RM, RTO, and RED zoning districts to operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. with conditional use authorization. The origin for this amendment came from a conditional use authorization hearing that took place in October of 2017 for the legalization of a nonconforming event and performance art venue located at 3359 Cesar Chavez Street. The project sought the ability to stay open until midnight, but the Plan Code did not permit the hours of operation to extend beyond 10 p.m. In this specific case, the venue proposed to have nighttime event and art performances, which typically go beyond 10 p.m. The Commission considered the existing limitation on the hours of operation to be an undue restriction on the project. At the hearing, the Commission asked the Department to consider allowing for the extension of hours of operation for limited nonconforming uses. To date, the Department has not received any public comment regarding the proposed Planning Code amendment. Amending the Planning Code to provide a pathway for the extension of hours for limited nonconforming uses from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. would serve to meet the Commission's directive. It would also provide a means for the Commission to review the extension of hours of projects on a case-by-case basis via the conditional use authorization process. I'd like to note that initiation does not involve a decision on the substance of the amendments. It merely begins the required 20-day notice period after which you, the Commission, may hold a hearing and take action on the proposed Planning Code amendment. The staff recommendation is to initiate this Planning Code amendment and schedule an adoption hearing for no sooner than April 19th, 2018, due to Central Soma plan proceedings scheduled for the Planning Commission hearing on April 12th, 2018. So this concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Moore.
Move to initiate.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. If there's nothing further, there's a motion that has been seconded to initiate as well as schedule an adoption hearing on or after April 19th, 2018. On that motion, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0 and places us on item 13 for case number 2017-014297, PCA Planning Code Corrections Ordinance. These are amendments to the Planning Code.
Commissioners, before we start, I'd like to introduce you to a staffer who you have not met, David Brodsky. He joined the department in June of 2016. Where he was assigned to the Zoning and Compliance Division originally. Previously, he worked as an intern with the Richmond Planning Department, while attending the Masters of Urban Planning program at San Jose State. While working in Richmond, he reviewed applications ranging from new single-family homes in historic districts to conditional use permits for restaurants and mobile food facilities, and most importantly, assisted with the implementation of the Iron Triangle Walkable Neighborhood Plan. We welcome David.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Good afternoon, President Hillis and members of the Commission, David Brodsky, Planning Department staff. The item before you is the 2018 Code Corrections Ordinance, which would amend the planning code to correct clerical errors, outdated references, and improve the general readability of the code itself. The proposed amendments will help complete Article 2 and 7 reorganization, as well as overlooked items within the cannabis ordinance. The majority of these amendments are not considered substantive. There are, however, two which are. The first is the proposed amendment to Section 145.4 that would allow an exception to the ground floor commercial use in the C3 and C2 districts. The second is from the cannabis ordinance, which would remove duplicative noticing requirements, as well as the mandatory DR requirements for all medical cannabis dispensaries. Although this change is considered consistent with the intent of the recently adopted cannabis regulations, the failure to remove this provision was a drafting error. At this time, the Planning Department is asking the Commission only to initiate these code amendments, which begins the required 20-day notice period, after which the Commission may hold a hearing and take action on the code amendments. Staff's recommendation is to initiate the proposed ordinance and schedule a public hearing to consider adoption on April 19th, 2018. This concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, we may. Let's see if there's any general public comment on this item. Any public comment, sorry. Seeing none, Commissioner Richards?
Move to initiate and schedule a hearing for April 19th.
Second.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Commissioners. On that motion, then, to initiate and schedule an adoption hearing on or after April 19th, 2018. Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0 and places us on item 14
Thank you very much.
for case number 2015-000644 ENV, the Biosolids Digester Facilities Project certification of the final environmental impact report. Please note that the public hearing on the draft EIR is closed. The public comment period for the draft EIR ended on June 19th, 2017. Public comment will be received at this time. However, comments submitted may not be included in the final EIR.
Good afternoon, President Hillis, members of the Commission. I'm Tim Johnston from the Planning Department's Environmental Planning Division. The item before you is, as Jonas mentioned, is the certification of a final environmental impact report for the proposed Biosolids Digester Facilities project, which is sponsored by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, or SFPUC. As requested, a representative of the SFPUC is here today to provide you with a brief overview of the project description. So I would like to invite Carolyn Chu up to go over that with you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Carolyn Chu, and I'm the project manager for this Biosolids project. So this project is the largest capital project in PUC Sewer System Improvement Program. Can I? This project will address the aging infrastructure and outdated technology at our southeast wastewater treatment plant, which is a critical infrastructure since it provides over 80% of the city's sewage and stormwater treatment. In this project, we will be fully replacing the solids handling portion of the plant, which is the area outlined in yellow, and we will be replacing it with a new facility adjacent to the plant, which is outlined in the blue in the bottom figure. That site will be comprised of existing Southeast plant, Central Shops, which is the city's current fleet management facility, and a decommissioned asphalt plant. Here's an aerial of the site. You'll see that it's a pretty busy site. You have Caltrans on the, I guess, the left side of the page there of the slide, and the decommissioned asphalt plant on the bottom of the page, south of Gerald, and then the central shops in the parcel north of Gerald. The proposed site is surrounded by residents, light industrial, and commercial businesses, in addition, obviously, to the southeast plant. In consideration of the neighbors, to minimize traffic near the project site, we have proposed that construction workers park their personal vehicles off-site and shuttle in during the course of the construction. We also anticipate closing a portion of Gerald, the area of Gerald inside the blue figure there, to really for worker and public safety, so we could facilitate this huge heavy construction job. And we also have identified some alternate routes. In addition, we are hiring a site-wide construction manager to help coordinate the PUC construction, other construction jobs in the vicinity. So, at the end of, the key features, these new biosolids facilities will apply the latest technologies. So through that more efficient and effective treatment, I'm going to be able to provide treatment with less digesters. Currently, we have 9 of them. And in the new figure, you'll see that there's only 5. The level of treatment, of course, would improve from what we call a Class B level of treatment to Class A. That really opens us up for more beneficial use of this treated biosolids, meaning we can reuse it for agricultural purposes. We'll have enough energy, because we'll be reducing energy, a byproduct of the digestion process, to not just produce the steam and heat to support the treatment process, but with enough also to provide up to 5 megawatts of power, which is almost 50% of what the plant needs to sustain itself. And lastly, we are going to achieve our level of service goal, which is limiting odors from this facility to within the plant fence line. Here is just a massing diagram of the new layout. You'll see, those 5 cylindrical tanks on the top of the page. Those are the digesters, and we've located them adjacent to the railroad tracks, furthest from the neighbors. You'll see also, along the edge of Gerald, we made sure to put our maintenance buildings, so to have a more friendly front to the public. And then on also on the other side of around Quinn Street, that's where the energy recovery facility is, that little triangle to the left. And here's just an aerial view of the proposed architecture. So you'll see there's Gerald, those 2 maintenance buildings I talked about, and you'll see the digesters in the background. I think that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn the podium back to Tim.
All right.
Thank you, Carolyn. So before you is a copy of the draft EIR certification motion as reviewed by the City Attorney's Office. The draft EIR was published on May 3rd, 2017. A public hearing on the draft was held before the Planning Commission on June 1st, 2017. Public comment was closed on June 19th, 2017. The responses to comments document was published and distributed on February 23rd, 2018. Evaluation of the issues contained in the EIR did find that implementation of the project would directly result in significant effects, most of which can be mitigated to a less than significant level. However, the EIR also found that the project could contribute to significant and unavoidable impacts on air quality and cultural resources, even with the implementation of mitigation measures, as listed under Item 7 of the draft certification motion. Due to the project's significant and unavoidable impacts, the SFPUC would need to adopt a statement of overriding considerations pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, should the PUC choose to approve the project. With that, staff recommends that the Commission adopt the motion before you that certifies that the contents of the report are adequate and accurate, and the procedures through which the final EIR was prepared comply with the provisions of CEQA, the CEQA guidelines, and Chapter 31 of the San Francisco Administrative Code. This concludes my presentation, unless the commissioners have any questions.
All right, we may. Let's open it up first for public comment. Any public comment on this item?
Good afternoon, Commissioners and staff leadership of the Planning Commission. I am Michael Janis of the San Francisco Wholesale Produce Market. We are longtime adjacent neighbors of the treatment plant. The San Francisco Market, partnering with the city, has operated in our Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood since 1963. We've recently been designated by the city as a legacy business. The market's 30 merchant businesses and their over 850 team members every evening bring healthy, fresh-tasting produce to the San Francisco residents and Bay Area businesses. We function not only as a critical piece of healthy food infrastructure for the city, but also as an incubator for threatened industrial, small food businesses and as job creators. The market adds value to the city's social service network through a number of programs, such as our food recovery program, which prevents fresh, healthy food produce from going to waste and rather goes into vulnerable San Franciscans' diets. As I said at the draft EIR hearing last year, the market supports the goals of this project as an advocate for an improved wastewater treatment facility. It is in that spirit that I share two main points today. One, the San Francisco market has struggled for years with the conflict between our operations and public vehicles that run through the market, and the PUC's proposal to route their construction trucks through the market runs counter to our core goal of improving safety. Yes, there will be fewer cars, but there will be large construction trucks that are on tight schedules, running at very, very tight intervals through the market during peak hours. Two, we have offered to demolish a building on our property and terminate 2 of our subleases to make Innis Avenue available as a truck haul route for the PUC construction traffic. This is a 2-block-long city-owned street that is barely used. Leaving it unused while pushing construction truck traffic through the neighborhood, through the markets, overtaxed streets, is a significant waste of available resources. Over the last 18 months, since 6 months before the publication of the draft EIR, we have tried repeatedly to engage productively with PUC staff in conversations about how and when this underutilized city right-of-way may be put to play to reduce the traffic impacts in our community. Doing so would reduce the number of trucks traveling along Evans Avenue, a main east-west thoroughfare for the neighborhood, and reduce the safety hazards of construction trucks traveling through the market. We sadly had a member of our market family killed in September in a traffic accident. I realize I'm out of time. Most disappointingly and sadly, the result of all these meetings from 2016 until last month before you is a document that is silent in every way on utilizing Innis Avenue as an asset that could be used during this project. And in the published responses to comments, the PUC states that when Gerald Avenue is closed due to the market's construction project, the PUC will redirect their trucks onto the neighborhood streets that are already proposing to use.
Thank you, Mr. Janis.
Thank you.
All right. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dan Dote. I'm a Bayview resident for over 30 years, business owner, and the chair of the Bayview Community Planning Office. In reviewing the responses to comments in the larger EIR, I'm reminded of the early discussions when planning this project and a commitment to the triple bottom line: financial, environmental, and social. I have no doubt that the financial side of things and the life cycle costs of the $4 billion project have been fully evaluated. I'm not sure, however, that there's been a commitment to the 2 other elements. The environment of this project is not limited to the footprint of the plant, yet the review of the transportation and traffic impacts seem to be narrowly focused on just this project. There is no plan to mitigate or to deal with these impacts of traffic and transportation. The larger environment here is comprised of neighborhoods and is no longer solely an industrial area. Bayview is a community of neighborhoods, of people who have responsibilities, work, and families, of professionals who make their way to work within and beyond the area, of parents who take their kids to school and back, of ratepayers to the PUC, just like the rest of San Francisco. The PUC is in a privileged position here. As the funding will flow, the water and sewer lines will sewer rates will only increase over the years, and the project is on its way. Yet, with privilege comes great responsibility to get it right for the Bayview, all of the neighborhoods, and to the people directly impacted by the project. There is much in the EIR regarding the odor controls, the seismic upgrades, and the overarching benefits of completing this much desired and needed work. That's not in dispute. But other key elements do not pass the smell test. Commissioners, with all due respect, you cannot in good conscience certify this EIR now without using your power and influence to require a fully vetted, well-planned, environmentally and socially responsible traffic and transportation strategy and implementation plan, and the related rigorous study of any and all air quality violations which will impact and will occur as a result of this project. These plans, alterations, and contingency strategies must be in place prior to the certification of the EIR. This was the commitment made for years, and certainly in the past number of months, to this community. The people of Bayview, your fellow citizens, parents, ratepayers, and those just passing through deserve your leadership. This EIR is too early to certify, and if we do nothing to improve the results and the challenge the conclusions drawn, then we're complicit in compromising the health and safety of the Bayview residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mark Clayman. I'm the owner of Pet Camp. We're located at 525 Phelps Street, directly across from the Southeast plant. Pet Camp has been serving San Francisco's families for about 20 years. We are located where we are because we needed to be in an M1 or an M2 zone and 200 feet from the nearest R zone, which greatly limits the available properties to us. We always understood that being across from the Southeast plant would impact us, but we never thought that the construction at the Southeast plant would impact us so readily. We've been active in the community for the full 20 years we've been there. I've served on various commissions, including the Digester Task Force. We're a destination location. Our clients need to be able to park. They need to be able to drive to us and park close and safely. Our clients come to us with dogs, cats, and children. Phelps is already a very narrow street and designated as a bicycle route. We understand that there's a need for this project, but we want the project implemented in the least possible intrusive way. Part of the goal of this project is to lessen the impact of the plant on the community, but implementation of the project in this way is being done with disregard to the needs of that very community. The response to comments for the draft EIR simply don't really respond to our needs. They acknowledge that they've simply just hired a construction manager to evaluate options to mitigate, to deal with mitigation prior, to mitigate the traffic impact, but they should really be thinking about mitigation before approving the draft EIR. They speculate that closing Gerald would decrease traffic on Phelps Street, but they also say they're trying to limit how long Gerald is closed. I'm not sure how they can conclude closing Gerald will help Phelps Street if we don't know how long Gerald is going to actually be closed. And lastly, they say that the lack of parking for local businesses is no longer considered when evaluating a draft EIR. In fact, that might be legally correct, but it's certainly not the right way to treat your neighbors. It seems a shame that the PUC is alienating those very neighbors who should be the biggest advocate for this kind of project, simply because the PUC isn't willing to listen to our concerns about the need for safe traffic patterns. I very much hope that the PUC doesn't need to revisit their traffic patterns after someone gets hurt. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll open it up to Commissioner comments and questions. Anybody? I'm happy to start, and I appreciate the concerns that some folks brought up. Clearly this is a project that's long overdue. It needs to happen. This is adjacent to a residential neighborhood as well as some of the PDR uses that we heard about, and it's much needed. And I applaud PUC for doing this and moving it along. No doubt there's going to be some traffic impacts and some inconvenience during the construction of this project. It's a massive project. But I think the EIR, as before us, adequately addresses those concerns. No doubt we'll have to continue to work with PUC. The produce market, we've taken a great step in actually closing a street so that the produce market could have better access and vacating that street, which no doubt had impacts to the neighbors too. But I think for this project, the EIR before us is adequate, and we should certify it. Commissioner Moore.
I'm of a similar mindset, President Hillis. There are two issues. One is embracing a new facility, which really brings us in the 21st century in terms of biosolids. On the other hand, this has been in a community which has been seriously affected for so many years by the existing plant. And so my ears are wide open to hear the concerns and think about them. And it's very difficult when you have a highly technical project driving as fast as this has and needs to, given the cost and the incredible construction time frame. On the other hand, the life of people in the neighborhood remain the same, irrespective of what's behind the fence. And I do hear the concerns about traffic. I hear the concerns about cultural resources, and I hear the effect on the community, which has existed since the original RFP for the project, which is at least 6 or 8 years ago. And while I support us moving technically forward and doing the right thing relative to sewage treatment, it doesn't answer my kind of ache about those issues which haven't encompassed answering community concerns.
Commissioner Melgar.
I too support this project, and I am concerned with the traffic impacts, though I feel like the environmental document that we got adequately addresses it. I would just say also that this is long, long overdue. For this community, it's long overdue for the earth. I take seriously that what is coming out of that treatment plan will be much friendlier and leave a better footprint for us as a city on the earth than what's coming out right now, and that has long-lasting impact for generations to come. So I'm glad that this is finally happening, and I'm happy to move it forward.
Is there a motion, Commissioners?
I move that we approve this.
Second.
There's nothing further, Commissioners. There's a motion that has been seconded to certify the final environmental impact report. On that motion, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards? Excuse me. Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis. So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Commissioners, that'll place us on item 15 for case number 2016-007850 ENV at 88 Broadway and 735 Davis Street. This is an appeal of the preliminary negative declaration. Commissioners, we received a request from the appellant to continue this matter 1 week. The reason for his request is that he has pneumonia and is in the hospital. But that is all I have for you.
All right, and that came through a call, right? Because I don't think any of us...
Through a phone call as well as an email from the appellant.
Okay, and is there any, I mean, he was representing the congregation or the conference at St. Peter and Paul Church. Is there anybody else here from that organization? Nope. So, Commissioners, I'd say we move forward. If we want to continue, we can make a motion to continue, but we probably should hear this item unless there's objection and you want to hear the continuance first. All right, seeing none, we'll take up the item. We'll hear from the planning staff first, and then if there's anybody here from representing the appellant, we can hear from them, and then the project sponsor.
Okay. Good afternoon, President Hillis and members of the Commission. I'm Jenny DeLumo, Planning Department staff for the 88 Broadway and 735 Davis Street project, or the proposed project. Joining me is Chelsea Fordham, Principal Environmental Planner, and members of the project sponsor team are also present. The item before you is an appeal of the Preliminary Mitigated Negative Declaration, or PM&D, prepared for the proposed project. You should have before you a packet containing the executive summary, draft motion, exhibits to the draft motion, and the amended PM&D and initial study. The project site is bounded by Broadway to the south, Vallejo Street to the north, Front Street to the west, and Davis Street to the east in the North Beach neighborhood. The site is within the C2 Community Business Zoning District, 65X Height and Bulk District, the Waterfront Special Use District Number 3, and the Northeast Waterfront Landmark District. The proposed project would remove the 2 surface parking lots on the site, which provide 180 public parking spaces, and construct 2 affordable housing buildings with 178 dwelling units. The buildings would be approximately 65 feet tall at the Front Street property line and step down to approximately 45 feet tall at the Davis Street property line. In addition to residential uses, the project would include commercial space, a daycare center, common open space, 2 mid-block passages, and 3 loading zones. No off-street parking is proposed. A PM&D and initial study were published on October 25th, 2017. An appeal was timely filed on November 27th, 2017 by Mark Bruno of the St. Vincent de Paul Conference at Saints Peter and Paul Church. The appellant's primary concerns are that the PM&D and initial study did not adequately analyze cumulative transportation impacts, including impacts due to taxi and transportation network company trips, and the potential for an increase in vehicle miles traveled due to new trips generated by the project. The appeal letter includes additional concerns about cumulative construction impacts. The Planning Department's response to these concerns are provided in Exhibit A of the draft motion. As noted in the appeal packet, the PM&D and initial study did adequately analyze cumulative transportation impacts and determined that these impacts would be less than significant. The cumulative impacts analysis took into consideration past, present, and reasonably foreseeable projects within a quarter-mile radius of the project site. This analysis included the cumulative projects raised by the appellant, the Teatro Zinzani project at Seawall Lot 323 and 324, and the museum project at 940 Battery Street. The transportation network projects transportation network projects in the vicinity of the project site. Additionally, cumulative impacts, including those related to construction, were analyzed in all 18 environmental topics in the PM&D and initial study, and it was determined that the project would not contribute considerably to a cumulative impact. Since publication of the PM&D and initial study, the project sponsors, in coordination with the department, made revisions to the project design. These revisions were made in response to public comments and comments from the Architectural Review Committee of the Historic Preservation Commission and the Port of San Francisco Waterfront Design Advisory Committee. The revisions include reconfiguration of the massing to include setbacks of the Broadway facade and portions of the Front Street facade, using brick on portions of the facade instead of cement board and using a more proportional window pattern. These revisions would result in 2 one-bedroom units changing to 2 studio units and 1 3-bedroom unit changing to a 2-bedroom unit. These changes would not affect the analysis and conclusions of the PM&D and initial study. On March 2nd, 2018, the Planning Department sent a memo to the Commission members with corrections to the project description provided in the March 1st, 2018 appeal packet. The corrections are that the proposed project would be 191,000 square feet instead of 191,300 square feet, and that the setbacks along Broadway and portions of Front Street would be at the 6th floor rather than the 5th floor. We also want to note that since publication of the packet on March 1st, the Planning Department has received more than 30 comments in support of the project and in opposition to the appeal. These have been forwarded to the Commission members. Per CEQA Guidelines 15063B, an environmental impact report is prepared if there is substantial evidence that the project either individually or cumulatively may cause a significant adverse effect on the physical environment. The appellant failed to provide any substantial evidence that would indicate that the proposed project would have a significant impact on the physical environment, necessitating the preparation of an environmental impact report. The PM&D and initial study provides substantial evidence that the proposed project would not result in significant impacts. Therefore, preparation of an environmental impact report is not required. For the reasons described above, we recommend that the Planning Commission adopt the motion to uphold the PM&D. This concludes my presentation. I am available should you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Project sponsor.
Good afternoon. I'm John Stewart of the John Stewart Company, and I'm joined here on my right by Marie DeBoer of Bridge Housing. We are the co-general partners on this project. Our attorney, Charles Olson of Lubin and Olson, is here also, along with a cast of thousands supporting this project from our team. We have been at this thing for 3 years. We've had, I think, the mother of all outreaches, 23 public meetings. This is the 24th. We have a traveling roadshow. I'll try to keep this crisp. All the comments that we've gotten, not all of them, but the predominant theme of the comments that we got from the neighborhood, and we've had many meetings, had to do with massing and fenestration and texture on the cladding, which we have dealt with at some length. I note that when we started this process, we wanted to not take advantage of the density bonus and go to 9 stories, so we said, let's stay with 65 feet, let's stay within code, go for no variances, and indeed, on the north side of the project on Davis, we're less than the allowable 6 stories, we're at 4 stories, so we taper down. With all due respect to the design issues, I think sometimes we've overlooked what I consider to be a really outstanding public policy initiative by our former mayor, Ed Lee, and Mo. That's the Mo staff, I thought, have done a signal job on this because they've recognized a couple things that have been overlooked in the discussion on affordable housing. Most deals wrap around 4% private activity bonds with a cohort having incomes up to but not beyond 60% of the area median. That's the cluster. That mayor and his staff said, we're going to go beyond that. We are going to deal with, finally, in one project, people who have been formerly homeless and provide 20% permanent housing for that cohort. And we're going to do it also with another cohort of 100 to 120% of area median, the so-called missing middle. That's fire, police, first responders, and teachers. Those are really hard to finance. In fact, it takes more public subsidy on a teacher than it does on somebody who qualifies for the low-income housing tax credits. I take my hat off to Mayor Lee and his staff, Olson Lee in particular, who started this thing, as well as Kate. We are, I think, the sort of the mother of all hybrids. We have mixed income, mixed use, and mixed age. We have 53 senior units. We have a cafe underneath the senior component. We have a sit-down restaurant. We have something I like. We have live work, and we have a large child care center. Before turning this over to Marie, I just want to comment that it's a pleasure for us to work with a partner that we've done many transactions with. The first actually being one that started 16 years ago, North Beach Place. Very similar, ground lease, affordable, tax credit, mixed income, mixed use, mixed age. And if you want to have a foretelling empirically of what this project's going to look like in terms of craftsmanship, design, and continuing operation, I would encourage you to look at Bay and Taylor North Beach Place. Marie is now going to talk a little about what we do going forward and also what I didn't talk about, social services.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Marie DeBoer. I work with Bridge Housing, and I thought I'd highlight some of the community benefits of this project. First and foremost, we're delivering 178 new housing units, and not only are we adding to the housing crisis or adding units to meet the need here in San Francisco, they're also affordable. And as John mentioned, they include a broad range of housing, including middle income from 80 to 120% AMI, the formerly homeless. We'll support that by adding services to the buildings. One of the services will be a child care service operated by the YMCA of San Francisco. And all residents will be supported by services that the YMCA and Lutheran Social Services will be providing. We are also providing specific services targeted towards the formerly homeless units. Lutheran Social Services will be on-site providing case management services for those residents. We're also including retail, a total of almost 6,000 square feet in the project. And those will include probably a restaurant, and a coffee shop. Going forward, this project is ready. Aside from this appeal, we have pre-development funding from the mayor's office for this project. We're planning on completing our entitlements in June of this year, and we'll enter the final design phase of this project and gear up for financing in August, which would make us ready to start construction in the spring of 2019. We've experienced a little bit of a delay, but hope to move forward with this project, and thank you for hearing us today. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. We may have some, but let's first open this up to public comment. I have one speaker card, Bob Harrer, but if others would like to speak, please line up on the screen side of the room.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Bob Harrer. I'm with the Barbary Coast Neighborhood Association. And we have nothing to really add or criticize as far as this very thorough staff analysis of the environmental impacts, and certainly can't disagree with the proper conclusion that there's no significant environmental impact. However, we did note that there was a comment letter submitted about concerns over impacts on land use and cultural issues, and so I believe that for the record, those merit some comment. First of all, let me emphasize that this project is located in the middle of our neighborhood area. Members of our association live across the street. They'll walk by this site every day, so that whatever goes in here is going to impact our neighborhood significantly, and we're going to have to live with what's there. To be clear, we supported the original design, and we still support the modified design. Our objective, or really our desire, is to have a project that, within the constraints, is not a cold, boxy, institutional blockhouse kind of structure. We view this street, this project in combination with the Teatro Zinzani project, can really offer the opportunity to have a very nice pedestrian walkway that's really a gateway to San Francisco. And therefore, we support this project because, contrary to perhaps the comment letter that was sent in, we believe the design is attractive. We believe that the developer has been very sensitive to height and mass concerns. Given the constraints of the project, we're looking at providing as many, or the city is looking at providing as many affordable housing units as possible, and they've correctly, I think, stayed within the 65-foot height limit, so there is no need for any variance. We think, given those constraints, they've handled the situation as sensitively as possible. There are many setbacks, and we particularly appreciate the adjustment to along the Broadway street that has the setback on the top floor. Also, I would also point out that there was a change to the window pattern, and that originally was an irregular pattern. Now it's not. It's a minor issue, but we don't need to duplicate history, and we really preferred the earlier one, which seems a little more modern. So in conclusion, we think this project really can offer a great gateway to the city, and we support this project. And with that in mind, we respectfully urge you to approve the issuance of a mitigated negative deck. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Sir, you can come.
My name is Ted Camasano, and I'm with North Beach Neighbors. We're a neighborhood group of who's been around since 1978. I just want to say that we've been presented with the design a long time ago, and at this point, I was very impressed with the design because from a social aspect, I think that people who live there will be a community, and I have no other issues with it, and I urge you to support the project.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Danny Sauter. I am the president of North Beach Neighbors. We are an organization founded in 1978 with 100+ members. We're focused on making North Beach a vibrant, inclusive place to live. We are here today in support of the project and thus in support of the negative declaration. We have been engaged in this work for 3+ years and have been thoroughly impressed along the way with the community outreach that the project team has done. And we believe that the 24+ community meetings are a testament to that. I want to emphasize just how important of an opportunity we see this as. For as much talk and good intent as there is to build affordable housing, the unfortunate truth is that this is the only project currently in the pipeline in District 3 that offers any significant affordable housing. The next closest project has 8 units. So this is our opportunity, and if we want to build neighborhoods that are inclusive, neighborhoods that welcome families, that welcome seniors, we must start here, and we must move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. President, Commissioners. My name is Jay Wallace. I'm a partner at Kenwood Investments. We are the neighbor across the street on Davis Street, hopefully, of this project. We are part of the partnership that is developing the Teatro Zanzani Hotel at Broadway and Davis, and you'll be hearing from us soon. We wanted to come today because it's been a pleasure to work closely with the John Stewart Company and Bridge and their architects on design. We will share front doors on Davis Street. We've worked through the issues that entails, and we're very comfortable with the outcomes that both they and we have come up with. And I know they share the same attitude. Simply, it's a great project. We're excited to have this project as our neighbor, and we look forward to coming before you with our project in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Nico Nagel from SF Hack. I just wanted to reiterate, as I'm sure you've heard from my coworker Corey the last few weeks, that this project is a massive upgrade over the current parking lot, given the massive housing shortage that we're in the midst of. It also hits the quota for every population in the city that needs housing. And on top of that, 2 of the best builders in the city, 2 of the most reputable builders, have community support from both the North Beach neighbors and the Barbary Coast neighbors. To add any more urgency, as if you could, to this particular project, 250 Laguna just went down, and we need housing for folks who would have had that housing. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Ms. Flandry.
Good afternoon. I'm afraid I have a question, actually, which is, does the AMI level go low enough to accommodate seniors whom we know nationally have a Social Security amount of about $14,000? Will they also qualify for the senior housing? I am really pleased. I like the idea of mixed income a lot, and especially bringing in folks who have been unhoused. But my concern is the AMI also low enough to bring in the other real part of the senior population? That would be really important to me, and I know as someone who's lived in North Beach for 38 years, working closely with the senior population and those who were once 50 years old that I've watched grow to be 90, that wanting to make sure that population is also included in this, especially if there is senior housing. I do know and like North Beach Place a lot, but I also know that some of our seniors who have been evicted are not eligible to move in there because their income is too low. So just wanting to make sure that the AMI level is low enough to also accommodate our seniors who especially have been evicted from this neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Any next speaker, please?
Hi, Stephen Bush, Mission Yimby again.
I really like this project. I went to one of the community meetings and I spoke in favor of it. And I actually found it pretty distasteful that the wealthy homeowners in the audience audibly hissed at me and called me a shill when I was speaking in favor of 100% affordable housing. So I would really love for it to be approved as quick as possible, just so I can be a little smug about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Buss. Any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioners? Commissioner Moore.
Looking at the appeal, I do not believe that the displacement of 180 parking spaces in this area warrants more than what has already been done in environmental analysis. Since the early 70s, there has been displacement of parking throughout the area, starting from the building of the Golden Gateway Commons to the relocation of the farmers market, et cetera, et cetera. And even 15 years ago, or even longer, people started to talk about a joint strategy to look at other parking resources within the area, such as the Golden Gateway including the Alcoa building, all older buildings with very high parking ratios, to see as to whether or not a joint parking ratio for parking displacement on port property could find another solution, and that's called a joint strategy for parking at certain times. So I do not believe that these 182 spaces on their own will greatly change any analysis that is not already contained within the document. The other comments regarding the architectural treatment of the buildings is being discussed and worked on in other gremiums, and this commission will look at the building independently. This is not an approval of the project as is. It is basically commenting on the appeal, and I personally do not believe that there is any reason that what we have is indeed appealable.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? I mean, I would agree. I think we've done a lot in this commission, and I think at the citywide level try to expedite affordable housing projects that do all the right things. This is a well-designed project. It's creative in its financing. It's unfortunate we're here on an appeal by one person where I think it's kind of bogus traffic issues in one of the most transit-rich portions of the city. So I hope we can move this along quickly. Commissioner Richards.
Move to uphold the negative preliminary negative declaration.
Second.
Commissioner Moore.
I did want to add to my comment that I appreciate the size of the project in this particular area. I think it's an extremely important project in District 3, and we do not have many opportunity sites like this one.
If there's nothing further, Commissioners, there's a motion that has been seconded to uphold the preliminary negative declaration. On that motion, Commissioner Fong.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar.
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0. Commissioners, we had item 4 pulled off of consent and inserted at this time. So we will hear case number 2016-014839 COA at 4093 24th Street for a conditional use authorization.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Marcel Boudreau. I'm on behalf of staff Ashley Lindsay. The item before you is conditional use authorization for work to be performed at 4093 24th Street. Pursuant to Planning Code Sections 303 and 209.3 of the Planning Code, a conditional use authorization is required for macro wireless telecommunications facility in the 24th Street, Noe Valley NCD zoning district. The proposal is to install a new AT&T macro wireless telecommunications services facility on a 3-story building at the site. The proposed facility consists of the installation of 12 new panel antennas, installation of 20 remote radio units, and installation of ancillary equipment. All antennas and radio relay equipment will be screened from public views. 3 new rooftop FRP faux vents will screen 3 antennas, and 1 new FRP box will screen 9 of the antennas. A second FRP box will screen ancillary equipment. The FRP walls will allow radio signals to pass through, but can be textured and painted to mimic existing architectural elements. All of the screens, cabling, and any of the equipment as potentially visible will be painted to match the existing building as part of department requirements. The project is located on a lot, within Noe Valley. Surrounding uses include a mix of residential and commercial and public uses throughout the NCD and public zone districts. In the blocks surrounding the project site, the buildings generally range from 1 to 3 stories in height. Since publication of the packet, staff has received public comment on this item. 1 email was submitted in support of the project. Jonas, I have copies for... That's enough. I also have a few additional copies for the public. 2 phone calls were also received in objection to the project. Based on zoning and land use, this is a preferred location for siting. The proposed WTS facility would not significantly impair commercial or residential activities within the proposed site. And the proposed facility is on balance consistent with the objectives and policies of the general plan, and department recommends the commission approve this conditional use authorization with proposed conditions. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any additional questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Is the project sponsor here? You have 5 minutes if you'd like to speak on this item. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Misako Hill. I represent AT&T Mobility. I want to thank staff and Ashley Lindsay in particular for bringing this project to the hearing. We have worked diligently with staff on, designing the project to meet the zoning regulations. We held a community meeting for this project before submitting the application. About 4 members of the public attended, and I believe we addressed all their concerns. We did have one of the residents that required some existing EME measurements done, so we did that for them. I'm joined here today by Raj Mathur, representing Hammett and Edison, and also AT&T RF engineer, Michael Cornelia. So I'm able to answer any questions that you have regarding the project.
Okay, we may. But we're going to open it up for public comment first. If we have questions, we'll ask you to come back up. Thank you very much. So I've got 2 speaker cards, Sarah Lee Pennington and Dimitri Lagios. You each have 3 minutes. And anybody else is welcome to speak on this item also. You all may want to just line up on the screen side of the room. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lee Pennington, and I have been a leaseholder along with Elaine Wells and Padma Moyer of the suite of offices at 4093 24th Street since January of 1988. To note, 4093 is only one of 3 addresses in the building, which encompasses 4 building addresses. So we have a question as to why our address is the only one designated by AT&T. I am speaking on behalf of the people who are leaseholders and renters at this address. We are, of course, concerned that every precaution will be taken by AT&T to ensure the safety of those who work and come for service to our suite, who work in the building at large, and of our neighbors and others who live, work, walk, and enjoy their lives on 24th Street and in Noe Valley. From the radio frequency energy levels that will be emitted from this proposed cell antenna project installation. We are concerned about the radio frequency levels from the AT&T installations that will be placed over us on our roof, and of course want to know how we who work in the building will be protected. To ensure our protection, we request, 1, that the level of radioactive energy to be measured in our offices at 4093 24th Street before any work is begun on this project, as well as to have the levels of the same energy monitored in our offices after the project is installed at the appropriate time intervals. 2, that before and after measurements should be taken on the streets in the surrounding area of 4093 24th Street so that we know that both the radioactive energy levels in our offices and on the street level are within an acceptable range as established by the Federal Communications Commission. When there are safety concerns such as these, the American Cancer Society recommends this level of monitoring by a government agency or private firm to ensure that the RF field strength near the cell phone towers is within the acceptable range. Thank you for addressing these concerns.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you very much for allowing us to speak. And my name is Dimitri Laios. And if it makes any difference, I'm a native San Franciscan, born and raised. I've lived here my entire life. I'm getting old, and I don't want to lose my wife. I don't work in this building, but I am the husband of the other woman who's sitting next to Sarah Lee over there. So I thought I would help out by, because I have some knowledge of the issues of the equipment that's going to be installed, and what I am asking to have happen, preferably before the equipment is installed, besides checking all of the RF amounts inside the building. I've been in touch with Misako Hill and Ashley Lindsay, and I understand all the necessary measurements have been taken outside of the building and in the neighborhood. We would like, and we understand we are going to get, simply by asking for it, measurements inside the building, and including the office that my wife works in. What I'm here to promote is the installation of essentially a new roof. This new roof would be impregnated with a product called Cuprotect shielding. It's called Cuprotect Shielding System. It's basically a copper wire mesh that covers the entire roof. And what it does is it stops, and it's grounded to ground. So anything that approaches it is stopped from going into the facility, into the building that all this equipment is on. You may be familiar with it, because I wouldn't be surprised if others have talked about it. But this equipment is patented here in the United States. It's made in Germany, and installations have been made all over the country. California. I'm in touch with a person that would I would suggest to be contacted and bid for the job. So that's what I'm basically looking for, and that we at least talk about the possibility of installing this. And what I want to say is that if we don't install it prior and find that it should be installed, it's going to cost a lot more money to install it after the equipment is installed. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Susan Chiquetto. I'm the owner of Cotton Basics, which is the ground floor tenant of this building. I fully support the project. The permit process has been going on for a few years, and I've met with a lot of these people from AT&T, and they are so thorough. It's just, they get people from Sacramento to come and do surveys and studies and all these different things. I can't imagine that it's not completely safe. Cell phones are here to stay. We're going to have to deal with them. I think having small, frequent installations is the way to go, and I'm very confident that this is going to be safe for everybody. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioners? Just a question for the AT&T representative. So if the tenants, if you heard from various tenants in the building who wanted readings, you're open to do that, correct?
Yes,
okay.
I've been in touch with Dimitri, and we are working to get measurements done on that office building, office level.
Great. And do you have any feedback on the roof kind of Were you familiar at all with that? I know that's kind of a little bit out of our...
My Raj Mathur with Hammond Edison is familiar with it, so he may be able to answer some questions about it.
Good afternoon. My name is Raj Mathur. I'm with Hammond and Edison. We are an independent consulting engineering firm, and I am a licensed professional electrical engineer in the state of California. What the gentleman was talking about was a metal mesh shielding on the roof, and what that does is the signal essentially, like you said, bounces off of it and doesn't go into the inside the building. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind is that the antennas are already directional. What that means is that the energy coming out of the antenna is coming out in a narrow beam going out towards the horizon. Very little energy is going straight down. In addition, the typical building roofs provide significant attenuation already. So we've taken measurements at, hundreds of residences and office spaces that are just below active antennas, and we measure 1 or 2 or 3% of the FCC limit typically in those homes. So in my opinion, no further shielding is needed, and the pre and post measurements will show that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Koppel.
Make a motion to approve item number 4 on the condition that the before and after testing is done for the tenants.
Second.
That is the standard condition of approval, but certainly. Commissioners, so that was a motion by Commissioner Koppel and a second by Commissioner Hillis. Very good. Commissioners, on that motion then to approve this matter with conditions, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0. Commissioners, that'll place us on item 16 for case number 2017-013609 CND at 668 through 678 Page Street. This is for condominium conversion subdivision that you have already heard. Please note that on January 11th, 2018, after hearing and closing public comment, the Commission adopted a motion of intent to disapprove and continued the matter to February 1st, 2018, at which time, without hearing, you continued the matter to today. Commissioner Johnson, you had not yet been seated as a commissioner, so in order for you to participate, you need to acknowledge that you've reviewed the previous hearing and materials.
I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and as this being a second hearing, 3 in 1?
Yes.
It's very good. So the project sponsor will have 3 minutes, and public testimony will have 1 minute, or will be limited to 1 minute per person.
Thank you. David Weisglass, Planning Department staff. Commissioners, the case before you is a request to allow a condominium conversion subdivision of a 3-story over garage, 6-unit building into residential condominiums pursuant to the general plan and subdivision code sections 1386 and 1396.4 within an RH3 zoning district and a 40X height and bulk district. The Commission heard the case on January 11th, 2018, and after public comment and deliberation, adopted a motion of intent to disapprove the case and continued the case to February 1st. At that hearing, the case was continued once more to March 8th. I provided the Commission, the project sponsor, and the public, and I have extra copies right here, with an updated and clarified motion. The changes include the correct citation to the subdivision code, and a more detailed and correct description of the subdivision code requirements. Pardon? Yeah, so for the public, we can leave there. Includes correct citation of the subdivision code and a more detailed and correct description of the subdivision code requirements. You'll find that most of these changes are on page 2 of the motion and in finding number 3 of page 3. The update also adds an explicit finding setting forth the 4 bases for finding violations of subdivision code section 1386. This is on page 4, new finding E, and as follows. This application violates subdivision code section 1386 for 4 separate and independent reasons. 1, vacancies in the project have been increased. 2, an elderly tenant has been displaced from her unit within 3 years preceding the application date for the condominium conversion. 3, an eviction or its equivalent occurred for purposes of preparing the building for conversions. And 4, the subdivider has knowingly submitted incorrect information that misled and misdirected efforts by agencies of the city in the administration of the subdivision code. Further, the clarifications provide additional explanation as to why the proposed conversion violates General Plan Housing Element Policy 3.3. You'll find this on page 5 of the motion. And finally, the clarifications go into detail about the statement of decision on page 8 of the motion. Per the motion adopted with an intent to disapprove on January 11th, 2018, the department recommends disapproval of the application. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, project sponsor, Mr. Emblich.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott Emblich, on behalf of the project sponsor. You've heard enough from me. You've gotten 2 lengthy written submissions. I was remarkably unsuccessful at my last attempt to convince you when I appeared here the last time, but I think you didn't hear from some of the residents at the last meeting because of the time constraints of the hearing. So there are 2 of the residents here who would like to speak to you and explain. I hope that you will understand that there is another side to this story, and they will help put some life to that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Bayshirian. Along with my wife, I've owned 678 Page Street since June 2003. I don't have time to go into addressing all the claims and allegations made by the opponents of our application, but I do want to address one particular item on the findings. Number 6, point C, subdivider submitted incorrect information. This is regarding a discretionary review that I submitted in July 2014. This information is inconsistent with the building history. So this is the item I'd like to address. So there is no inconsistency. The discretionary review was submitted in July 2014. Absent of any communication from Miss Canada or her family to the contrary, we had no reason to believe that Miss Canada would not return to the building. In fact, neither I nor any of the other owners would have objected to that. We knew Iris. I knew Iris from 2003 to 2012, 9 years, and none of us would have objected to her returning. But it was only subsequently that Mr. Owens learned that Miss Canada would not return to the building and had permanently relocated from 2012 to Oakland. So to be clear, there was no consistency in the filing. The actual court filing occurred in 2014 December, which is 5 months after I submitted the discretionary review. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I wish I had more time to speak to you. I feel like there's been a great deal of inconsistencies in the stories that have been shared with you, and I don't think you guys have the full story. But I will tell you this. The absolute truth is that Iris Canada did not live at 670 Page Street. I share a long corridor with her, and I know for a fact that for 5 years there was no one living in that unit. The story I would like to tell you today is one that the media doesn't want to tell you. It's because it doesn't sell newspapers, and the activists don't want to share with you because it won't further their goals of protecting the elderly. The fact of the matter is this story is about a single signature. Almost 3 years we asked for that signature on our condo conversion paperwork that would have had no effect on the terms of her life estate. Once the court case started, all we needed was that same single signature in order to end the litigation. All we needed was a single signature when Peter offered to waive the $120,000 in court-awarded fees in exchange for a cooperation. The judicial record shows that her attorney and the court-appointed judge implored her to end the dispute and have the fees waived with a stroke of her pen. That, again, would have had no effect on her life estate. All we needed was that single signature when Peter Owens agreed to reinstate her life estate after the court had rescinded it already. All we needed was a single signature when Peter finally offered to amend the agreement that would allow her to stay in the unit with her caregiver. So the real question is, why wouldn't Iris Canada just sign the paperwork? The real reason is that people charged with protecting Iris Canada advised her against giving us that single signature for more than 5 years. Those same advisors did not have her well-being in mind. Instead, they used the elderly family member as a pawn, moving this frail old woman back and forth across the bay only when media interviews and when activist protest warranted it. These people were supposed to be looking out for her health and instead filling the end of her life with court battles, stress, and ultimately heartbreak at the loss of her home, all of which could have been averted with a single signature. For more than 5 years, we never understood why this signature wasn't forthcoming. We had falsely assumed that Iris's caregivers were indeed looking out for her best interests. However, the end game was revealed in 2017 when the same people that had advised her against signing finally demanded that Peter Owens sell them his unit at a 50% discount. For Iris's caregivers, it was never about her health or long-term well-being. They were simply using her signature as leverage for their own financial gain. At the January 11th meeting, all the commissioners expressed outrage at how the city had become about money and that the greed exhibited in this case was disgusting. Furthermore, you wanted to use this vote to condemn our actions because you felt that our application was willfully misleading this commission. Well, I agree with you. You have absolutely been misled. You've been misled by the Iris's caregivers who fabricated this lie that they have sold to the media, that they have sold to the public, and now has befuddled all of you. Iris Canada was absolutely exploited over the past 5 years, but not by any of the owners in my building, and certainly not by Peter Owens, who went to great lengths years ago.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So we'll open this item up for public comment, and I've got a number of speaker cards. Tommy Avocola-Mecca, Tony Robles, Evie Passamentier, Deepa Varma, Teresa Flandrick, and Charles Minster. And you can come up in any order.
Hello, thank you, Commissioners. I'm Deepa Varma of the San Francisco Tenants Union. I wanted to thank you and the Planning Department itself for its careful work on this and its recommendation to disapprove this application. I think that you've seen all of the information and you've cut through all of the misinformation to see what's really going on here. And I wanted to speak really briefly about some of the comments that were just made. First of all, there's a comment that this was all decided in a court finding in 2014. I want to remind the commission that that was the court hearing where Ms. Iris was not represented. And they're basing all of this on a situation which she was not represented by counsel. And secondly, I wanted to mention this about the signature. The signature, they go on and on in their most recent documents about how offers were made to Ms. Iris, and if she was serious, she would have signed. What they don't talk about is how those offers that were made to Ms. Iris would have involved increasing her housing costs to the point where she could not have afforded them, and she would have been evicted anyway. This was still about displacement. It's not about a signature. It's not about being in good faith. This is about displacement, and it's always been about displacement. And finally, they bring up this argument again and again about claiming that Ms. Iris was not evicted. Ms. Iris was given an Ellis eviction, Ms. Iris, and then ultimately, at the end of the day, Ms. Iris was evicted by the sheriff, and all of us saw this happen. To make it about all of these other definitions and questions and side facts and all these other things obscures the fact that all of us were there. This was an eviction.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, your time is up.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And please disapprove this application.
Thanks.
Hi, Tommy Avocola-Mecca from the Housing Rights Committee. I just want to start by saying that this is a sad occasion for me because it was a little over a year ago that Iris Canada was evicted, February 10th, and it was a little less than a year ago, on March 25th, that she died after that eviction. It's very hard for me to get beyond that since I knew the woman for over a year and tried to help to save her home. I don't want to get into the back and forth. I think the staff report says it all. I think it's very succinct and to the point. There was an eviction. She was living there after 2012. I was in her place many times. I can attest to the fact that she was living there. She was evicted not once but twice. Don't forget there was an Ellis attempt, which was an attempted eviction. The story I can go on and on with details, but the bottom line is the staff report says it all. You should reject this because a senior was evicted, and that eviction did lead to her death. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Teresa Flandrick. Again, this whole thing started with the Ellis Act eviction in 2002. There were 10 tenants that lost their homes, with the exception of Iris, who was then granted the life estate. However, in the end, she was indeed evicted, and she did indeed die. So I beg you to go along with all of the testimony that you heard, that you understood, that this is only about greed, and we cannot reward those who would do this to our city and to a 100-year-old woman. And so to deny the condo conversion would be in the best interest of our entire city, and especially for seniors. We can't bring Iris back. We can't take back what happened, but you can make this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Evie Pasmintier. I strongly oppose this project, and as a senior and a person living with a disability, we are fragile. We need to hold on to our homes as much as possible. So I think this story has echoed with many, 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 many people. It is Women's Day, and in Iris's memory, let's do the right thing.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Charles Minster. I'm a member of Senior and Disability Action. Iris Canada's death is known all over the world. You know, it became infamous. This pack of greedy tenants here who want to make a quick buck off of condo conversions, pure and simple. And there should be a plaque placed there. I know if we have a workers' revolution in this city and in this country, we will put a plaque there. This marks the spot where greed and avarice won and killed a woman of 100 who lived in that building for over 5 decades, but decided to throw her on the street so he could make a quick buck.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Commissioners, Tony Robles with Senior and Disability Action. Please reject this. Iris did live there. The information that you need is in the report. She was, in fact, evicted. I was present on the night that it happened. Sheriff carried out the eviction, as they do for all evictions, and a moving company was hired to take all of her stuff out. I'd been to her house on many occasions. She lived there. You know when a person lives in a place. You know when a person doesn't live in a place. And again, we urge you to reject this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Cynthia. I'm here with the Housing Rights Committee. I live in District 9. I also organize on the West Side. I'm here today to urge the Commission to deny this condo conversion. Iris Canada was displaced, and it was because there was profit to be made on the unit. She lived in her unit for over 60 years. She was a Black senior, and she was one of many long-term elderly tenants of color who were being disproportionately targeted by speculative behavior. Iris, who was in her late 90s and eventually reached her 100th birthday, had the right to age in place. Whether or not she needed care, when she needed it, or how she got it is under her discretion and the discretion of the family. Not only was there an Ellis attempt prior to the most recent legal battle with her landlord, she also experienced a sheriff's eviction, which many of us witnessed. There was an eviction in this unit, and this eviction led to the death of a 100-year-old woman. Therefore, I urge the Commission to deny this condo conversion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Joy. I'm with Housing Rights Committee. I am here to urge you to deny this condo conversion permit. It's really clear that there's eviction happening, and please help us stop speculators from profiting out of evicting seniors from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Ayana Moore from Faith in Action Bay Area. Good afternoon. I want to say that those who live at Page Street are not bad or evil people. I know that because some of them had the courage to come up and talk to me when I vigiled and protested for 3 days and nights. All they wanted was the American dream, which is what we all want. Iris Canada wanted that too, and I believe it is true that she wanted to pass it on to her heirs, as any homeowner would. Is it in the best interest of the common good to approve an application that was against the law because it did not state the truth that there was an eviction. And what does it say about the Planning Commission and the Planning Department? How can we trust them that this was overlooked? It will take moral courage for you to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Moore.
I don't believe that anything I have heard today moves me to not support the intent of denial that we passed in January 11th. I think this is very clearly worked through in the motion that's in front of us. I think the department did a very thorough job. Thank you. And I just move to disapprove.
Second.
Commissioner Richards.
So I think no matter how you want to try to contort the story to making it work for you, I remember when I was before the Rules Committee at the board on my confirmation, a couple of things I said was people who buy businesses and then buy them for the purpose of putting them out of business really are bad faith actors in this city. I use some examples. Joseph Schmidt Chocolate was bought by Hershey in my neighborhood, great institution. Hershey didn't want them as a competitor, so they put them out of business. People who buy rental buildings, knowing that they're businesses, and then LS acting the people months later, that's very bad faith. And that's, I was sitting there, another one I heard yesterday, here's a good one. A Category A historic resource building, I was talking with a historic preservation person, and developer bought the building and said to this historic preservation person, I want to get rid of the building. And the historic preservation person said, I can't, we can't. And he said, well, can I burn it down or can I put bugs in it so that it falls down? I mean, this is the kind of bad faith things that are happening in this city. And I think this is where we really have to draw the line. You folks bought the building knowing people were Ellis. Saying that you're creating homeownership opportunities for people when you're actually getting rid of people is just talking through both sides of your mouth. You got rid of people when you Ellis the building. I mean, there were people there that were living. I don't get it. How could anybody say I'm creating opportunities for people when I'm actually taking them away on the other end? So I'm happy and very proud to vote yes on this disapproval.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Quick question for the project sponsor, if you mind coming up, or the representative. And back up a lot. We've heard this back and forth, but there's still some stories aren't totally clicking to me. How long has the project sponsor owned the property before Iris had left the property?
The
number of years, months?
Mr. Owens bought the property in 2002. But the project sponsor is 6 people, or 6 groups of people who live in 6 different units. They acquired those units at various times.
And when was the first time that an action was requested to try to condoize or to convert to condo?
I believe in 2014.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's just all I want to know.
Mr. Emlich, just on that, so back in 2002, when the Ellis Act was first initiated, it was Mr. Owen or who was the property owner at that point? Mr. Owen.
Peter Owen and 2 family members of
And then
Peter.
the subsequent people who are in the building bought units as TICs from Mr. Owen.
That is
or
correct.
have subsequently bought units.
That if over several years.
But Mr. Owen still owns
1 unit.
Was it the unit Miss Canada, was it?
That is correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, I urge people to read the findings in the motion. And I think this, there's a lot of back and forth. I think I get the facts on this. In 2002, there was an Ellis Act. And we can't necessarily hold this condo conversion up because of an Ellis Act in 2002. At that point, Miss Canada was slated to be evicted from that unit through an Ellis Act. I think lawyers for THC, right? Was it the Tenderloin Housing Clinic? Prevailed and were able to get her, negotiate with Mr. Owen and get her a life estate in the property.
That's not the way I heard it, but Mr. Owen's not here to.
But somehow,
Mr. Owen certainly granted her a life estate.
Yeah,
not under
but
threat,
I heard it
not
was,
with a gun in his head.
he obviously tried to Ellis Act the building. Miss Canada got a life estate in the building, which I think is important. I mean, the Ellis Act, bad. Getting Miss Canada a life estate in the building, I think, was good. And she certainly had the ability to remain in that unit under that life estate, through her life. And I think what happened, because I've been through this process before, is the condo conversion required her to sign a document.
As an owner.
As an owner, well, even as a tenant, I think she would have to sign that document. But it required her to sign a document. But I think she had the discretion whether to sign that document or not. So I think I get there were people trying to negotiate for things for her, and they weren't agreed upon. And she didn't sign that document, which prevented the ability for the remainder of the owners and Mr. Owen to condo convert that building. Certainly she could have signed it, but she was not obligated to sign that document. So it then went on. I believe she was evicted, but she was evicted for violating, I mean, I think it's clear, the court held that she didn't live in the unit at that time, and she was evicted for violating the life estate agreement. And I think that's where things get kind of murky, but that's the case. In whether it was, as the staff said, it wasn't necessarily a no-fault eviction. I mean, it was determined by the court whether she had representation or not, or what happened, that she violated the terms of her life estate. So she was evicted. And I think that's the key in this, is I don't think she was necessarily evicted. This wasn't the result of it ultimately was the result of the 2002 action that this all came about, but she was evicted from that unit. It was a fault eviction. It was for violating her life estate. The court held that she didn't live in that unit anymore, and she was evicted. But I think that information had to be put forward on the condo conversion. And I know in your argument, in your brief, you say she was an owner at that point, but she was an owner as a life estate owner. She didn't pay property tax. She didn't pay the insurance and things like that. She wasn't able as owner to sell the unit to somebody subsequent to that. So I think that's where your argument breaks down. I think you should have noted that in the document. Maybe that prevented you then from moving forward with the condo conversion because somebody was evicted, whether it's a no-fault eviction or not. But I think that's where it ends up. I think the staff did a great job kind of clarifying that. I urge people to kind of read the facts in that staff report because I think they're generally accurate. But that's why I'm voting to deny the condo conversion, is basically outlined in the staff report.
If there's nothing further, Commissioners, there's a motion that has been seconded to disapprove this item. On that motion, Commissioner Koppel.
Aye.
Excuse me. Got this little screwed up here. Commissioner Fong.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar.
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. The motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Commissioners, that'll place us on item 17 for case number 2017-015104 CUA at 201 Steiner Street, conditional use authorization.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Weisglass, Planning Department staff. Commissioners, the case before you is a request for conditional use authorization pursuant to Planning Code Sections 186, 764, and 303 to allow a change of use from a limited restaurant to a restaurant doing business as Cafe Reveille in a limited commercial use tenant space located at 201 Steiner Street, located within the RM1 zoning district and at 40X height and bulk district. Per Planning Code Section 186, changes of use are only allowed in limited commercial use tenant spaces if the proposed use is permitted in the most restrictive of an NC1 zoning district or an individual neighborhood commercial district within a quarter mile of the property. This location is within 1/4 mile of the Upper Market Street Neighborhood Commercial District, which allows restaurants with conditional use authorization. Therefore, this proposal requires a CUA from the Commission. Tenant space measures approximately 1,284 square feet. The Commission previously disapproved a request for conditional use authorization to establish a Formula Retail limited restaurant doing business as Blue Bottle Coffee at this location on June 1st, 2017. However, the proposal before you is not a Formula Retail establishment. There are only 5 locations existing in San Francisco, including the tenant space, which legally began operations as a limited restaurant on February 7th, 2018. There are no major changes in operation or layout of the establishment other than the proposed addition of beer and wine to the menu, which will be applied for in the future. To date, the department has received 2 letters of opposition from a community member, and that's included in your staff report. The department recommends approval of the application with conditions. This concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Project sponsor. There's 3 minutes on this? You have 3 minutes. If you need them. Go ahead.
I'm Thomas Newbury with Cafe Revea, 201 Steiner Street. We are proposing for limited restaurant to restaurant to do beer and wine service because we were hoping to do dinner service in the following month or so. I have a picture of our current menu here. And basically what we intend on doing for our dinner service is just a continuation of what we do for our lunch service. Sandwiches, salads, burger, some bowls, pastas. We've been open for, I would say, the last month or so, and the neighborhoods well received us. Everyone's kind of appreciate the space finally being activated. I'm not 100% sure what the deal was before with Blue Bottle or whatnot, but I know that plenty of neighbors have come in and really, thanked us for activating the space. And, the Neighborhood Merchants Association is saying this is a step forward into potentially getting the space diagonal from us rented out, because from what I understand, it's been sitting vacant for the last, 5 years or so as well. We're not trying to, be open incredibly late, probably until 10 p.m. At the latest on Fridays and Saturdays. It's all counter service. You come in, you order at the counter, we bring you your food, and we think that beer and wine could complement our food program and the space itself pretty nicely.
All right, thank you very much. We may have questions for you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Richards.
So we have a Revier Cafe on 18th Street in the Castro, and it's been a great addition to the neighborhood. It does serve food. I don't think there's been any complaints with it. I actually go to this building twice a week because my gym is in the third space down, and this is in the end space. And I think that this would be very additive. I know the place. That's why I was like, and I've gone in and gotten coffee within the last week. I also looked at the letters of opposition, and they're from folks that are very far away. 55 Laguna, which is the big development down near Market. So it's not like somebody's right on top of the restaurant saying it's going to create some issues. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't approve this, and I move to approve.
Second. Commissioner Koppel.
Just wanted to make some similar comments. I'm walking distance from my office and pass by the location and think it's just going to do nothing but add to the Lower Haight / DuBose Park neighborhood. So in support also.
I'm supportive also. I just wanted to we sat through that long Blue Bottle hearing some time ago, and many of the arguments, we kind of get vilified sometimes for rejecting Formula Retail, and things will remain vacant, but I think this has been a great reuse of the building and that site, so I'm supportive.
There's nothing further, Commissioners. There's a motion that has been seconded to approve this matter with conditions. On that motion, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards? Aye. Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Commissioners, that'll place us on items 18A and B for case numbers 2016-003836, CUA and VAR at 114 Lyons Street. This is a conditional use authorization. Okay. And the acting zoning administrator will consider the request for variance. Please note, Commissioners, that on October 19th, 2017, after hearing and closing public comment, the Commission continued the matter to December 21st, 2017 by a vote of 4-0. Commissioners Johnson, Melgar, and Moore were absent, and Commissioner Johnson, you were not yet seated at that time. Subsequently, on December 21st, 2017, without hearing, you continued the matter to February 8th, 2018, and February 8th, 2018. You again, without hearing, continued the matter to March 8th, 2018. Commissioners Johnson, Melgar, and Moore, in order for you to participate, you must acknowledge that you've reviewed the previous hearing and materials.
Yes, I have.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As this is a second hearing of the matter, 3-1. Very good.
Good afternoon, President Hillis, members of the Commission, Laura Aiello, Department staff. The proposal before you is a request for conditional use authorization to legalize the merger of 4 dwelling units into 2 dwelling units within an RH3 zoning district. The authorized use of the building is 4-family per the report of residential building record. Building permit plans on file at the Department of Building Inspection show the authorized configuration of the building as full floor flats on the 2nd and 4th floors and front and rear apartments on the 3rd floor. The 4 units have since been merged into one approximately 3,100 square foot dwelling unit spanning the 3 upper floors and one new 341 square foot studio apartment located behind the garage. As you just heard, the project was continued from the October 19th hearing. Staff recommended disapproval of the merger at that time. At the hearing, the Commission indicated its potential support for a revised project consisting of 3 dwelling units, and the project was continued. To date, a revised project has not been submitted to the department, but instead of continuing the item another time, we are here with an informational update. The project sponsor has sought input from a representative at the Department of Building Inspection regarding upgrades needed to restore a 3rd dwelling unit. A summary of this information, along with a rough floor plan depicting a 3rd unit spanning the 2nd and 3rd floors, was provided by the applicant and is included in the project packet. It also includes the original October packet. The project sponsor is still seeking legalization of the existing 2-unit configuration. The project sponsor believes that restoring a 3rd unit is infeasible and has submitted a letter outlining the estimated safety upgrade costs. Whether the project is legalized as is, or if additional dwelling units are restored, some modifications will be required to meet life safety standards. If safety upgrades require modifications to the visible facades of the building, historic preservation staff will work with the applicant to ensure that only the least intrusive modifications are made. The department is still recommending disapproval of the 4-to-2 dwelling unit merger as proposed. As noted in the October dated executive summary, the project would legalize the removal of 2 dwelling units and legalize the current layout, which consists of one approximately 3,100 square foot unit on 3 floors and a less desirable 341 square foot unit located behind the garage. This concludes my presentation. I will be available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, project sponsor.
So did you say 3 minutes or?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, can I just ask staff a minute? So I'm a little confused. Is this, we have it listed as informational only? Is that,
That is correct. The original packet has a motion to disapprove the legalization. There is no other motion associated with this project.
Okay. So the only thing we can do is disapprove or give direction on.
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Tunney.
Thank you. Yeah, that was our understanding. This was mainly informational, and I'll try to be brief here. You've seen our materials. I'm Tom Tunney of Reuben Junius and Rose on behalf of the project sponsor. I would like to spend a little time going over some of the background for those who haven't been involved, but we appreciate the Commission's consideration. You've been careful in evaluating this. A couple of you have been to the property, and it's appreciated. This is a difficult case. Just to orient everyone, here is a photo of the facade. This is in the R2 zoning district. The home is designated as a Category A historic resource. It was constructed in 1891. Home was a single-family residence for many, many years. Then after World War I, it was divided into 4 units. Then after that, returned to a single-family home, which has been the case for at least 20 years. There's a small in-law unit now behind the garage with 2 tenants. When we were here last fall, you directed us to investigate the possibility of 3 units. We've investigated 3 units in various configurations. We looked at 2 flats on the upper floors as well as 4 units. We've had a number of conversations with GBI, and as Laura alluded to, we had 2 formal meetings with planning staff and Mark Walls of DBI, and now have a pre-application letter signed by Mr. Walls. The roadblock that we've run into after all this is that to do any more than 2 units at the property requires the building to be improved to meet R2 occupancy code life safety requirements. As we listed in the memo to staff in your packet, these improvements are key because they're significant. They include the following: an upgrade to 1-hour rated construction for the entire building. This is essentially a gut of the building and reconstruction of the home's entire interior. This is conservatively estimated to cost $300 per square foot at a 3,000 square foot total. That's almost $1 million in costs. The reconstruction of the interior would remove the entirety of the building's existing significant historic character. Other upgrades include sprinklering the building, and a second exit in the back with a firewall that would require a variance, upgrading the existing open stairs and the interior to 2-hour rated construction. These upgrades run in the order of $400,000. Even to do this work, we would have to evict the existing tenants in the building. We've talked to banks as well, and it's unlikely, if not impossible, that we could get the financing to do this work. So I know we're...
Go one more minute, Mr. Tunney,
Okay,
because I
thank
know
you.
where this is.
Yeah, and we're available for any questions. We know there's a reluctance to allow dwelling unit mergers. The city needs housing. We recognize that. We think this is a different case. My clients have spent an enormous amount of time and money seeking to come to some fair resolution here. They've done this in good faith, full transparency in meeting with GBI and planning. And it really, for us, has become apparent that 2 units at the property with the second unit remaining on the ground floor behind the garage is really only the logical, reasonable, equitable result here. And we would like the opportunity to talk a little more about this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, let's open it up to commissioners. Commissioner Melgar.
So I have a lot of questions about this. And maybe Mr. Tunney, So can you tell me at what point the current owners found out that this was not a single-family home?
Yes, okay, thank you. And that's an important part of this. So Margaret Majwa and Lucia Howard, they're here, purchased the property a little over 3 years ago. When they were looking at the property originally, they knew there was a question about the legal number of units. They talked with the seller. At the time, there was also an open enforcement matter on the property, and the enforcement matter concerned the number of units. So before submitting an offer, they wanted this issue resolved. Planning Department staff came to
Can I just ask on that, who initiated that enforcement matter?
Not the seller, or it
who-
was
who
an
can we-
anonymous complaint, I believe.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
I may, the first issuance I see is on a DBI comment on a permit, which was from 2015.
All right, sorry, go ahead. I apologize, Commissioner Melgar. I just wanted to.
Just want to be clear.
Go ahead, Mr. Tenney.
Yeah, I thought,
Prior or after they bought it, the complaint?
Yeah, because we thought the complaint was after they bought it. There was a complaint before you bought it?
no, there's,
It's in our packet, right?
we have a notice of complaint dated May 1st, which is before they purchased the property, saying that Planning Department had received a complaint alleging that one or more violations existed at the property.
Just general violations or about the unit?
Well, once that enforcement case or the complaint was issued,
All right, we'll come back to that. I didn't
okay,
mean to
then there was
interrupt
a,
Commissioner
then
Melgar's line of questioning.
once that
but-
complaint was opened, I think that's when it was discovered that there was
Okay,
a
let's go back to-
unit count issue.
Got it.
And there's a second notice of enforcement that was issued May 5th. That's still prior to the purchase of the property. So Planning Department staff inspected?
I'm sorry. I was trying to, my question is all about the sequence and what.
Yes, yes.
So that was disclosed in the sale?
They were aware of it. Yes, it was disclosed in the sale, and my clients were aware of the enforcement action.
And what did the 3R report say?
Said 4 units. So the 3R report said 4 units. We had this enforcement case pending. The property was inspected, and then the enforcement case was closed. It was determined to be no violation at the property.
That was a planning enforcement case or a DBI enforcement case?
Planning enforcement case.
Oh.
So that was.
Yes. Right, yes. So they didn't make the offer until after the enforcement case was closed.
So I'm sorry, was there a lender involved in this transaction?
Yes.
And so the lender approved the transaction based on, having that closed?
I don't know that that was a condition to closing the loan,
Yes, no,
but
if there's an
you would
enforcement
expect, yes.
Plus, a 4-unit building would be financed differently
Yes.
than a single family.
Right.
So did they
Right.
get a single-family
That's right.
loan?
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is
What-
part of our financing challenge.
Was there the in-law unit or the unit
Yes.
behind the garage there now? So the enforcement case, did planning opine that it was 2 units? It was a single-family home with an ADU? Or what was or it just said no
It was
violation?
just that it was closed, and so we were told we'd have to correct the 3R report separately. But our understanding was that, or my client's understanding, was that that meant that the existing number of units was legal.
That's one.
So, Mr. Buskovich, why not go correct the 3R report? Like, people have gone to permit appeals and corrected a 3R report.
Well, so then they submitted a permit for some physical work at the property, and that triggered a new enforcement case. So once that was opened, we sought to, we could have done it that way, but we sought to get conditional use authorization allowing the merger of the units. It would have the same practical effect.
Okay. Commissioner Richards, or are you Commissioner Melgar, are you done?
Is that-
Commissioner
so-
Richards.
So I'm just looking here. The notice of violation started in May of 2015.
Right.
And I look.
The second round of, no, not the
no,
original,
The
original notice.
the original
Oh,
one.
okay,
That's the
sorry.
first.
Could be as a result of going to the open house, because this is when the house was for sale.
Could have
Happen-
been.
I mean, it happens.
Yes,
People go to
could have
open
been.
houses and they say, they look on the PIM and they say, this is a 4-unit building. I'm going to make a complaint because I'm in here and I don't see 4 units. I mean, that
Right.
happens. I'd say that's not beyond the leap of imagination. Then they contacted the department, and I see here that the no violation was issued 5/11.
Yes.
But then I see here in the assessor's the database that the deed of trust was issued 6/12. So that collaborates the project sponsor's
Right.
story that
Yes.
they did buy the building after they thought it was clean. Then they pulled out a permit for a closet.
Right.
And that was on, let me see here, let me pull up that permit, which started that second round.
Right.
Hold on. I know you included that permit in here somewhere. Should have tagged it. 1 second, sorry. Where's the permit? And I had it here just a minute ago. Do you know the date of the permit to pull for the closet? Do you have that? For some reason, I'm having a hard time here finding it. Because I noticed that and I said, wow, you know, what's this, $600? August. So that started the 2015.
Correct.
Okay, so that started
Right.
the second round of issues.
That's right.
Okay.
And to be clear also, I wasn't involved with the case at that time, and I believe Lucia and Margaret thought they were okay. That's why they submitted this building permit. They thought the issue was resolved. And so they weren't thinking, oh, we need to correct this 3R report.
So why do you think the notice of violation was lifted on May 11th? What happened? Anybody know?
We have asked that and wonder ourselves.
So the best you can do here would be 2 kind of equal size units, and that in-law unit stays. So you would have 3 units.
Doing the 3 units is the difficulty for us.
Okay.
That anything over 2 units pushes us into R2 occupancy, and that's what triggers the life safety requirements.
Sure. I mean, the interesting thing for me is a Dyednable historic preservation person. I walked through the house, and anybody can see the photos here. It's in near perfect condition as it was built in 1891. There have been some additions upstairs, a sink and stuff, but nothing that can't be reversed. You know, part of me says, okay, bite the bullet. There were 2 units here now for a long time. One was a small unit, the in-law unit, and then you have this big house. Okay, let's give them 2 equal size units. Let's keep the interior intact, all that great craftsmanship that to me is bordering on art on this. And then it said, and we're done, okay? Then the other part of me says, because I heard Mr. Buskovitz read his submittal, and I heard you left me a voicemail. Sorry I didn't get back to you, but I did hear a voicemail. Oh my God, it's going to cost $1 million to add 4 units or 3 units. But the other part of me says, I don't want to see the interior gutted, but you know, there's an upside. If there were 4 units, they could go for $1,500 a square foot. I mean, having just gone through this myself on a 3-unit building. So I'm a little bit torn here. What I'd hate to do is have this commission go, okay, we want to preserve the interior because it's kind of a work of art. It's a Category A building. Let's let bygones be bygones. These units were taken out of service decades ago. Then have somebody buy it and gut the interior anyways. So it'd be like, why don't we just gut the interior now and get us the 2 units? So that's where I'm at. I'm kind of on the line.
I mean, I walked through the home. I mean, certainly the owners are not, their intent is not to decrease the number of units in the city. You know, they bought it because they recognized, and it reads as a single-family home with a unit behind it. I mean, I can't figure out how it ever was 4 units. I know we have those drawings, but it wasn't standard units with kitchens and bathrooms. So it was awkward. And I get I don't think these folks are here to kind of speculate on this. They want to make it their home. They bought it as a single-family home. I think I'm like Commissioner Richards and Melgar. I don't quite know what to do with this project because we don't want to reduce the number of units in the city. But really, this hasn't been a 4-unit building, if it ever was, for decades. And I think if we did, I think it was my request and others to make this 3 units. I think you could probably do that where you make the ground floor a unit, the main ground floor and the top 2 floors a unit, but you would be gutting this quite intact historic home that clearly hasn't been used as a 4-unit building. I don't know if ever, based on what you look at in this home. So given all that, I think what tips it to me is the city gave bad information, right? If it says 4 units on the 3R report, at some point there was a notice of violation about that issue, and it was determined that there wasn't a violation. So, these folks went and bought this property with the understanding that this was a single family with an in-law unit or an ADU or whatever 2-unit building. So I think after all this and seeing the property, I'm comfortable approving the merger. I don't think we're losing any units in the city. This is what this has been for decades. We actually would be forcing them to convert this to something it's not in its bones. Don't dictate it should be. So I'd be fine disapproving the motion to disapprove, which maybe give you the right to approve at this point. Commissioner Richards.
So I could support what Commissioner Hillis said, and this may be stretching things a bit with some notice of special restriction that the interior won't be significantly altered, that there's a prohibition on that, because that's really, for me, the issue. If somebody's going to come in, like big tech money's going to come in and blow the interior out and create a big creamy stucco box, right, well, then what the heck are we here for? I'd ask for 4 units. And I'm really hinging it on the fact that they are operating in good faith. It is a single-family home. They can create 2 units, and that we would keep that interior as intact as we can. And I guess the city attorney, how could we do that?
I'm sorry, I missed the last question because we were conferring.
Sure. The issue for me is the whole issue around gutting it. It's pretty much a work of art. It's a historic resource. The interior, we don't landmark interiors. There are very few interiors that are landmarked here in the city. Probably I can count them on one hand. However, the whole issue for me is the cost and the ruining the art inside the house and all the craftsmanship, and gutting having somebody have them sell it and have it be gutted anyways. So if we're going to gut it, let's get the 4 units. That's really my issue. Can we put an NSR on the property for keeping the historic features on the interior, not gutting the house?
Or perhaps even require, just as a suggestion, that any permit to interior improvements or changes be reviewed by planning and routed to the historic preservation staff with the intent that the interior be preserved.
Very interesting questions. Since this is an informational item and the commission can't take an action on it today
Well, we do
anyway,
have a disapproval motion in front of us that we could take an action.
Oh,
I
can
would
they take
recommend
an
we
action
move
on
to
it?
disapprove the
Even
disapproval
though
motion.
it's noticed as an informational item?
This is not noticed as information.
It was.
No, and
It wasn't noticed as, it was described in the staff report, but it was noticed.
Right. It's noticed on our agenda as an action item.
Yes, it's on your
Yeah.
agenda as an
As
action
an
item.
action item.
So maybe if we were going to reverse what the motion is, we could have a week for some language to be put in to ensure that the building won't be gutted.
What I was going to suggest, since I was incorrectly assuming that the notice and the staff memo matched, was that perhaps we could have a little time to take a look at that and see whether it might be appropriate to add some conditions, because it's not a question I can answer off the top of my head.
Okay, I'd love to hear what other commissioners feel.
Commissioner Melgar.
So I would like to make a motion that we disapprove the disapproval motion, and that we direct the staff to look into mechanisms that would allow us to preserve the interior of this property as a historic resource, like some of the examples that Commissioners Hillis and Richards have stated.
Second.
You don't generally preserve interior portions
But
of
that-
the
I
building.
didn't say that we would. I said that we would, ask that staff look into it, which is what Ms. Aiello asked. She asked for guidance.
Yeah, I think you at the staff level can take
Guidance.
whatever actions necessary, whether it's a block book notation on any permit issued, to ensure that the interior of that building is reviewed with that was the intent when the commission approved this item, was there was consideration about the interior of the space. Commissioner Richards?
So this has been going on a while. I think waiting a week to
Well, we'd have to go
perfect
2
that
weeks.
language, to see what we're actually voting on rather than something mushy-gushy. We see buildings come down. Georgia Shooters just showed us 6 buildings that have been pretty much demolished, even though there are rules in place. So I'd love to give it a week, let the city attorney come up with some language that reflects Commissioner Melgar and Commissioner Hillis and my thoughts on this. I think we're all in alignment. So I make a motion to continue it for 1 week.
Well, it'd have to be 2 weeks,
2
Commissioner
weeks.
Richards.
2 weeks.
I didn't hear a second.
Was
for
there a
either
comment from who was
Not on
ever
that
acting as Director Ram?
Not on that specific issue. I'll let you guys finish that.
All right. Well, there's a motion and a second, so now's the
Has it been
time.
seconded?
It's been seconded, but my motion to continue, if it gets seconded, would overrule it. I mean, we're asking for 2 weeks. Project sponsor is nodding that they are okay with something like that. City attorney says she'd work on the language. I'd love to see what actually we're voting on.
Okay, second.
Great. Thank you. I just quickly want to make one point about the NOV and the 3R report, just to clarify. I don't know personally the details as to why there was never an NOV issued. There was a notice of enforcement because someone complained, and then that case was just closed without an NOV being issued. But ultimately, Department of Building Inspection determines how many legal units there are. The 3R report makes that determination, so that is kind of the legal standard. But just regarding the rear yard variance, I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit about the rear deck structure that exists now and kind of its history compared to what was there prior.
Right.
So, good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for considering this. So the best that we can tell is when originally this was a single-family house. During the war, they chopped up these buildings. Then they didn't care how goofy they were. I did an 11-unit house. So they chopped it up, and as part of chopping it up, they required a fire escape on the front and a stair tower up to the 4th floor in the back for exiting. Not sprinklers, but these 2 means of egress. And so the issue now is you touch it, you put it back full code. And we tried to find a place that we could put it in without a firewall, and there is no position to put this in, which isn't going to block habitable room bedrooms, and is so close, and it's not 5 feet or 3 feet, it's 10 feet from a property line. So the only configuration I could figure out that would work without blocking all the windows, because the size of it's 4 stories tall, is perpendicular to the building. And so you're going to be out a good 15, 17 feet with a firewall 4 stories tall on the back, which in the configuration now, the downhill neighbor is not going to see a 40-foot tall wall. He's going to have a 45-foot tall wall because it's downhill. So anything past noon, he's not going to see sun. Or after noon, he doesn't see the sun because of the building, but he's going to lose the sun from about 10 to noon, and he probably won't see the sun because the building's on, is that not Haight? What's the next block up? The next block up. So this wall is going to block the downhill neighbor's sun, most of what little he does have. So it's a pretty substantive structure. And the stair tower in the front is even bigger.
Do you know when the current rear stair structure was added?
The rear structure looks like, and it's really hard to date when they did this, but somebody tore off the fire escape and did a fantastic job putting back the historic character, but he also had the templates of the other 2 buildings. At the
90s.
back, it looks like someone tore down the stair tower and came up with kind of a jury rig exit system, which there's a lot of life safety jury rigs in this building. So when that one unit gets legalized downstairs, if you guys move this way, it's going to be sprinklered. There will be things done to make this building life safety safe, but it will be financially doable.
And you mentioned that originally that kind of stair structure in the rear was required for a second means of egress because there were four units in there. But that's the purpose of it. But if this was to remain a single-family home with one unit,
2 units.
Yeah.
Then the advantage there is you don't cross the Rubicon of going from 1 or 2, which is only the jurisdiction of the building department. You go to 3, it's fire department jurisdiction, and that is the line, that third unit. So we even tried to craft, I'll call it a housekeeping unit, because that was the other way to avoid it.
Yeah, I'm not really asking about the number of units.
You don't need the rear exit.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The upper floor, the upper portions of the stair and deck area technically wouldn't be required now.
I think what you would have to do at the back is pretty minimal if it's a single-family house with an accessory dwelling at the bottom. Or, it's an ADU.
Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion to continue with a second for 2 weeks.
Shall I call that question?
Yeah.
On the motion to continue this matter to March 22nd, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Commissioners, it'll place this under your discretionary review calendar as item 19 has been continued.
By that time.
For case number...
Jonas, do I need to continue
I
the variance?
apologize.
That's okay. I'll close the public hearing for today and continue it 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoning Administrator. Item 20, case number 2017-000424 DRP at 2714 Broadway. This is a discretionary review.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm David Lindsay of Department Staff. The project at 2714 Broadway is a horizontal expansion at the rear of the second story of this 3-story single-family house. A roof deck is proposed above the addition. The subject property is on the north side of Broadway between Broderick and Divisadero Streets at the southern edge of Cow Hollow and just north of the Pacific Heights neighborhood. The subject property is 137 feet, 0.5 deep and 35 feet wide and slopes steeply downhill from the street. The front portion of this circa 1908 house facing Broadway is 3 stories in height, while a 2-story component of the house steps down the hill beginning at the rear of the first story. The property is within the upper elevation sub-area of the Cow Hollow neighborhood, and the Cow Hollow neighborhood design guidelines characterize this sub-area as consisting of large lots developed with large detached single-family houses. This is the steepest part of Cow Hollow, and houses on the north side of Broadway are generally 3 stories at the street, increasing to up to 6 stories at the rear downhill side. Both of the subject property's immediate neighbors, including the DR requesters, reflect this characterization, with 3-story massing at the street and 4-story massing at the rear due to the steep downslope. The DR requester is Riva LLC, represented by attorney David Nelson on behalf of the property owners of 2712 Broadway, the recently constructed single-family house immediately east of the subject property. The DR requester's concerns with the project are as follows: that the rear portion of the subject house's first story already encroaches into the required rear yard, that the addition would create an east-facing wall that is monolithic in scale and incongruous with the original design of the house, and that the addition and the roof deck above will negatively affect light, air, and privacy for the DR requester's property. Following the submittal of the DR request, the Residential Design Advisory Team considered the issues raised in the DR request and concluded that the proposed addition would create massing that is comparable in depth and height to the massing of the adjacent houses, and that no exceptional or extraordinary conditions are created by the project. The Planning Department recommends that the Commission not take DR and approve the project as proposed. That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. DR requester.
Hi, my name is Christine Wayne. I'm with SSL Law Firm, and I represent Riva LLC, who's the DR requester. We've reached a compromise, and we'd
Wonderful.
like to present that to the commission and have that be sort of the result of the DR.
Okay, tell us what it
But
is.
the project proponent has asked that I actually say this at the hearing. Is that all right with everybody? Okay.
I mean, you could cut to the chase and just give us the agreement.
I've been asked to do it this way. If you could give me that, if you give me a little bit of your patience. Essentially, the compromise involves 3 elements: to lower the overall height of the addition by 1 foot, minimize the depth of the addition into, the distance from the rear of the existing structure to the end of it by 3 feet, and to have a glass railing after solid wall parapet. So from the rear of the existing structure to the end of the solid wall parapet, 11 feet, thereafter glass, with no top railing and no obstructions to that glass. And with this plan, with those conditions, we're all happy.
All right, Mr. Butler, you're amenable to that?
Yes, I am. My client is interested in the maximum amount of closure available because they're out of town. They don't want this to be a continuance or anything like that. We're interested in.
So it's removing 1 foot from the height, 3 foot from the rear addition. And can you just articulate the last?
Chris, you want to do that again?
Sure. So it's a
There
glass.
was no glass railing on the east elevation. So now on the eastern elevation, which faces my client's property, from the rear of the existing structure, there will be an 11-foot-long parapet wall at a height of about 48 inches.
Which was proposed before, right? That 11-foot wall, that parapet wall was proposed. So it's the remaining 15 foot 6 inches that becomes glass instead of parapet.
That's
Okay,
correct.
So 1 foot off the top, 3 foot off the back, and the last
And some
15
glass.
foot 6 inches of the railing, the parapet wall become glass.
Correct.
All right. Commissioner Richards, is there a motion to take DR?
Move to take DR and approve the project as outlined by Commissioner Hillis and the project sponsor.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? I forgot to take public comment. I'm assuming there's not. All right.
Very
There
good,
isn't. Nobody's
Commissioners.
coming forward. Thank you. All right, we've got a motion and a second.
On that motion that has been seconded to take DR and recognize the agreement between the two parties, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0.
All right, thank you. The meeting's adjourned.